Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I did not look at a single one of these trades before the video. So you're going to get my live instant reaction to every single one of these Dynasty trades. I think we have about 15 of these bad boys. We have a ton to look at. But before we get into it, drop a like, subscribe if you play Dynasty. If you have any of your own trades, leave them in the comment section. I'll try to respond to as many of those as I possibly can. And also make sure you are going and taking advantage of this offer we have on Underdog Fantasy. Of course, on Underdogs, where you can get into some incredibly fun 2023 best ball drafts. You can also check out all these cool player props. When you sign up with promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. And with the minimum of a $10 deposit, you are going to get my updated 2023 Dynasty Fantasy Football rankings available in pretty much every state. Make sure you're taking advantage of that. But I think that should be it. Let's go through. Let's start looking at these Dynasty trades. First one that we are going to be pulling up here is a little bit of a bigger deal. You have a couple different pieces being moved. Now, this is going to be mainly centered around the combo of Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence. I don't care about the fab. I don't care about Jarrett Patterson. It's Deshaun Watson, Juju Smith-Schuster for Trevor Lawrence and Calvin Ridley. And in my opinion, this is the easiest deal of all time. Here I am smashing that Trevor Lawrence side. I mean, at this point, you'd have to be a lunatic to prefer Deshaun Watson over Trevor Lawrence in Dynasty. And I will admit, I was that lunatic last offseason. If you would have sent me this trade last offseason, I'd have been all about the Watson side. But nope, things have changed, especially knowing that you are getting that Lawrence and Calvin Ridley stack. If you're looking at Juju Smith-Schuster next season, the man's not even guaranteed to be a Kansas City Chief. He signed a one-year deal. I don't know the probability of him leaving. I don't know the probability of them being willing to just pay him a nice hefty contract to keep him there. Clearly, the Chiefs still need a receiver. It's Lawrence regardless. Now, going over to our next deal, this is going to be another Deshaun Watson trade. We got a couple of these bad boys. This is Deshaun Watson and Devonta Smith for DeAndre Swift, Brock Purdy, and a second rounder this season. Now, honestly, don't care too much about where the second round pick lays. What I want to look at is Brock Purdy in particular. And I think this is a statement trade for whoever owns Brock Purdy or whoever traded for Brock Purdy in this deal. If you are all in on Brock Purdy being that next day 3 guy that comes in, has success early on, has the starting job for a long period of time, and is someone you can consistently start in fantasy, I would understand why you make this deal. Now, of course, you have people saying that Brock Purdy can end up being Tom Brady, that Brock Purdy can end up being Russell Wilson, that he can be Dak Prescott. Those are the big names people look to when they look at quarterbacks that were selected near the end of the NFL draft and find success. But personally, and I know I probably sound like an idiot to say this, I'm not willing to buy in to Brock Purdy at that level just yet. I still think Deshaun Watson is in a completely different tier. I would rank Deshaun Watson maybe 5 tiers ahead of Brady. It would be a wide gap between those two players for me, where we've seen Deshaun Watson be the quarterback 1 overall in fantasy before. Deshaun Watson just got the most guaranteed money in NFL history. He is guaranteed that starting job for the long term. Whereas with Brock Purdy, maybe it's Lance next year. I mean, for my teams, I'm really hoping it's Lance. I don't know. With Swift and Devonta Smith, the gap there is not large either. I mean, if you're looking at how damn good Devonta Smith was in year 2 and the fact that he's probably only getting better in year 3, I think you take Deshaun Watson in this trade. Let me know what you think. I think it really comes down to what you think of Brock Purdy. Now, going over to our next one, this is going to be the 109 Drake London and George Pickens for Cooper Kupp and Jonathan Taylor. Now, I will say this does look to be a very reasonable trade in terms of I could see it helping both sides. If you are a rebuilding team, if you have no shot to contend in 2023 and you're going to be playing for 2024, 2025, if you're going in full-blown tank mode, I would understand the thought process on getting Drake London, George Pickens, and the 109 here. Now, personally, I think if we were looking at the raw value, I am still going to be going with Kupp and Jonathan Taylor. Now, of course, they're veterans. Of course, there's going to be guys that if you're trying to contend right now, they're extremely valuable. And it's hard to imagine that their value actually increases from where it currently sits to next offseason. But with all that being said, while Drake London was an incredible prospect, and while I still really like Drake London, I still don't think you should give up on him. At the end of the day, he had a very bad rookie season. George Pickens, while he made some highlight grabs, while everybody is extremely excited about him, wasn't hyper productive, didn't draw a ton of targets. This is a one quarterback league, so that 109's not that valuable. I think you have to take the studs. I think you have to take Kupp and JT here. Now, going over to our next deal, this is going to be a DK Metcalf trade where someone's going to be getting DK Metcalf, a future first and second round pick, as well as Brian Robinson for Mixon, Tony, and a future third. I don't understand it. Give me DK Metcalf easily. I mean, I'd rather have DK Metcalf over Joe Mixon in Dynasty. I don't think we have to think about that too much. Joe Mixon was a running back drafted in 2017. Give me Brian Robinson over Kadarius Toney, and I would rather have a 2025 first and a second than a 2023 third. So, yeah, I mean, I'm easily going to take the DK Metcalf side there. Not thinking about that one at all. Going over to our next trade, we're going to be looking at Terry McLaurin versus the 110. If this was a one quarterback league where you're not going to have Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis pushing other running backs and receivers down your draft board, then there, honestly, I still go Terry McLaurin easily. But if it's going to be super flex where you have those four quarterbacks at the top pushing down other running backs and wide receivers, where maybe you're able to get a Quentin Johnston if he lands in a bad spot. And I know that sounds crazy right now, but trust me, we see players that are very high in rookie rankings every single season falling to that late first in Superflex drafts, specifically when you are in a spot that the Dynasty community is not too excited about. So I think this McLaurin deal is fair. If you're a rebuilding roster and it's Superflex, I would go with the pick. If you were contending, I think it's up to you. Now, our next side is going to be Travis Etienne and George Pickens versus 3 future first. If it's Superflex, I'm taking the first round picks. I'm sorry. I would rather have a 2024 first round pick in Superflex than George Pickens. I understand Pickens had some highlight grabs, but at the end of the day, George Pickens wasn't that good. Even when Chase Claypool left, once Chase Claypool was traded, I was sitting there going, okay, well, here's the George Pickens breakout. Now he's going to get volume. He's been hyper efficient with the volume that he's seen. It didn't happen. Deontay Johnson was horrible last year, but he's still signed to next season. He still draws a crap ton of targets. If it's super flex, give me 2 future first over Travis Etienne, even if Etienne is a baller. One quarterback, there, it's up to you. Now, going down to our next deal, we're going to be throwing out a bunch of garbage here. We're just going to be looking at the valuable assets. You're looking at James Cook and the 102 versus Tua Tagovailoa, the 112, the 107, and the 111. Now, keep in mind the 12th pick, the 11th pick, pretty much second rounders. Don't get too excited just because it has a 1 in front of them. But still, I would rather have Tua over James Cook and the 208. Don't think we have to think about that one too much. If we're going to be looking at the 102 versus the 3 late first, I still think we take the first round picks even with them being late, and I'm not even really considering the 102. I think it's going to be easily Tua and the 3 first there. Now, going over to our next spot, we're going to be looking at Justin Herbert versus Trey Lance, Christian Watson, and the 210. Now, speaking as someone who has drafted Trey Lance every single season, thinking, okay, well, he's going to the best roster in the NFL. He has all the rushing upside in the world. I don't know if he's going to be good from a real life standpoint, but I know he'll score 1 million fantasy points with his supporting cast and his rushing ability. I have Lance in every league. And I'll tell you right now, I have Christian Watson in a lot of leagues as well. If anybody with Justin Herbert wants to send me Justin Herbert for Trey Lance and Christian Watson, I will make that deal in a heartbeat. Go get Justin Herbert there. I mean, like we said, I don't know who's the starter in San Fran next season. Hopefully it's Lance, but it may end up being Purdy. We don't know for sure. Now, going over to our next deal, looks like this is going to be Jahan Dotson for Rachaad White. Interesting trade. If you're looking at a lot of the mock drafts we're doing on the channel right now, most people are taking Rachaad White over Jahan Dotson. I think that you can have a strong argument for either player dependent on your roster construction and primarily dependent on what you perceive to be the value and the future of Leonard Fournette in Tampa going forward. Now, our next deal is going to be Christian Watson versus the 110, 309. 309 is not worth anything. It's would you rather have Christian Watson or the 110? And it's a very interesting trade. I mean, if you're going to be looking at this Green Bay Packers situation long-term, difficult to know who's going to be the starting quarterback. If you were to have Aaron Rodgers over the next few years and the Green Bay Packers still aren't able to go out there and bring in a solidified alpha X wide receiver, which Christian Watson may very easily be, could be in a good spot. Could be in a very, very, very good spot once he really gets going next year. Christian Watson was someone that I drafted a ton. I will say it does remind me a bit of Chase Claypool, where, yeah, he was good his rookie season. He scored a ton of fantasy points. He had some massive games, but it was primarily fueled off of touchdowns and not necessarily too much off of actually raw target volume. So I'm taking Christian Watson there. I don't want to sit here and act like Christian Watson's someone that you have to be going out and getting in every league possible, though. I mean, we were saying that last season, but now I don't want to hype him up too much if the touchdowns come down next season. Now, our next deal just traded Justin Fields and Cole Kmet for Joe Burrow, a future 3rd and 4th. Feeling good knowing that I have Pat Freiermuth, Trey McBride, and the rookie tight end in Tennessee, and Watson and Dak as backup quarterbacks for Burrow. I have taken an oath to no longer tell people to sell Justin Fields. People hate it when I do it. People hate it when I say anything negative. So I am not going to let you know what side I prefer in this deal. I think everybody watching this video knows you want Joe Burrow. Okay, you don't tell anybody, they're going to get mad, but you would rather have Joe Burrow over Justin Fields. Take Joe Burrow there. Okay, so let's go over to our next trade. This next bad boy is going to be traded to Deshaun Watson and the 211 for Daniel Jones and J.K. Dobbins. 211 is not worth anything. Very interesting spot with Daniel Jones. I know everybody is so excited about Daniel Jones. He really fixed his turnover issue this season. I mean, Brian Daboll made this offense run like a beautiful, beautiful engine. Going forward, you have to say Daniel Jones is probably only going to get better as well. We were saying it in redraft leagues this year that Daniel Jones had rushing upside, so he's very interesting in best ball given his rushing upside from a fantasy context. And Daniel Jones was good with literally nobody at wide receiver. Nobody. Kenny Golladay ended up being one of the worst signings we've seen over the past 5 seasons. Then you end up with Sterling Shepard tearing his knee up. Then you end up with Wan'Dale Robinson tearing his knee up. Then you end up with a Kadarius Toney fallout. Of course, I'm getting this out of order. Getting shipped to the Kansas City Chiefs. You have nothing for the New York Giants. And still Daniel Jones had a good season. So I know Daniel Jones is someone skyrocketing up dynasty rankings right now. I'd be very interested to know what you think of this deal in the comments. I personally would still probably prefer Watson, but let me know what you think in the comments. Now, our next one is going to be one of my dynasty leagues, one quarterback. We traded Dameon Pierce for Trevor Lawrence and Leonard Fournette. Love it. Other quarterbacks on the team were Watson and Murray. I mean, obviously, one quarterback, we have to massively move down those QBs, but still. With Dameon Pierce, we went back historically. We looked at what kind of job security those day 3 running backs have. Not a lot. Yeah, we can find some extreme outliers. You can find Aaron Jones. You can find Austin Eckler that end up hitting on day 3. And turn out to be phenomenal fantasy options for the rest of their careers. Now, I will say, for every Aaron Jones you have 5 Philip Lindsays, 5 James Robinsons, where it doesn't matter. The team's not attached to these guys in the long term. Look at Elijah Mitchell, average 100 total yards per game his rookie season. What happened? They draft Tyrion Davis-Price in the 3rd round. They trade for Christian McCaffrey. James Robinson, top 5 running back in 2021 or 2020. I apologize. Whenever it may have been. His rookie season, top 5. They take Travis Etienne in the 1st round. So if we can cash out for Dameon Pierce for someone like Lawrence, I'm doing it. Now, next one, JT, Darnell Mooney, and a late second for the 108, 111, and 202. I'm personally taking Jonathan Taylor here. I mean, with JT, I understand he was very bad. I understand this is not a great situation going forward, but maybe they can solve the quarterback issue. I know they've been trying to do it for the past 5-6 seasons, pretty much ever since Andrew Luck left. Maybe they can draft someone this year and the offense ends up to be in a better spot next season. JT is still one of the most talented RBs in the league. Now our next one, Tyreek Jacobs and a late third for Travis Etienne, Dallas Goedert, and the 111. So if you're going to be looking at Travis Etienne versus Tyreek Hill, I think it is a very fair move dependent on your roster and your circumstances going forward. If you're going to be looking at Dallas Goedert and a late first versus Josh Jacobs, I'm going to go with Dallas Goedert and a late first. Keep in mind, Josh Jacobs ended up winning me like $150,000 on Underdog last year. So I really much like Josh Jacobs. He was my most drafted running back last season. But, I mean, going forward, we don't know the situation. And I don't want to sit here and act like Josh Jacobs is a top 5 running back every single season. Now, I think that's all we got for you. If you enjoyed this video, please go down there, drop a like. If you have any trades, leave them in the comment section. I'll try to get to as many as possible. Thank you again. I really do appreciate you, and I really hope you have a great day.